Hi, I'm Ron Rule, and we're having a conversation tonight with Tom O'Malley, who's running for the 9th Congressional District for U.S. Congress. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Ron.
May I call you Tom?
You may.
Thank you. Tom, who is Tom O'Malley?
Tom O'Malley is a kid that grew up in South Boston, spent all his summers in Marshfield, went off to the Navy in the late 60s, did a tour in Vietnam, came back, went to school, and then worked in the airline business, various and sundry jobs while I was going to school. Had a family, my first marriage, child, and then went back to school and got my degree. And after getting my degree, while still working in the airline business, I joined the Navy Reserve in the mid-'80s and decided I wanted to do that to make some extra money. And it turned out to be a very important move in my life because as I moved up through the ranks in the airline business, all the way up to a general manager's position, I was additionally doing that in the military. I served on some ships, but because of my experience in small boats when I had been in the Navy the first time, I was assigned to small boat units in the reserve system, and we provided port security and escort services to high-value assets. And after the coal was blown up, I had received the commission. I had made Chief Petty Officer, and I received the commission as an ensign in the Navy Reserve. And when the coal was blown up, I was the executive officer at a small boat unit stationed in New Haven, Connecticut. We were recalled to active duty about 6 months after the coal was blown up, and in fact we were deployed when 9/11 hit. So pretty much a shock. Here we were deployed to protect United States assets, and we were attacked at home. And being at the time an American Airlines employee, it was very difficult for me because I knew virtually the entire crew on Flight 11. So the war on terror has been very personal for me right from the get-go. Additional deployments to the Middle East, while still in the Navy, being recalled to active duty multiple times. 3 tours total in the Middle East, plus a recall to a squadron level in Newport, plus a teaching recall at the Surface Warfare School in Newport in order to teach surface warfare officers who had very little experience in small boats, littoral, riverine combat. So I was the lead instructor for that group, for guys that had no experience, no exposure to that. My final assignment in uniform, or during my last deployment, I was assigned to, I was the boat group commander for a task force headquartered in Bahrain, and I had patrol boats and crews in 5 locations in 3 countries. I was responsible for the vast majority of small boat operations in the entire Persian Gulf. I spent 5 years in command and was fortunate enough to command some of the finest men and women in the United States Navy. And I was very fortunate that I was able to bring them all home, which was a major accomplishment and the real goal when we left on deployment. But they did God's work while they were deployed, and we protected every ship and every sailor that we escorted. When I came home, my final assignment in uniform, I was assigned to United States Central Command on the staff of General David Petraeus. I was the Chief of Operations for the Interagency Action Group, which was the group that coordinated all the activities between the civilian agencies and the military. And virtually every government civilian agency had a representative to the Interagency Action Group. So any 3-letter agency you can think of had a representative there. So we worked with those folks, and we had intelligence analysts that tracked down bad guys and let them know where they were and provided briefings for the national command authorities on a regular basis. Upon leaving the military, I retired in 2010. I worked for Lockheed Martin, a defense contractor, and I was responsible for a contract they had for the United States Air Forces in Europe. And I had 96 people working for me there. And they eventually closed the office there, and I stayed in Tampa for a while until I moved back up here after I remarried, and lived back in Marshfield where I spent all my summers. And during that period, I had always thought about running for public office. And during the last probably 2 years, watching what's happening to the United States, it became apparent to me that the political class that's been in Washington forever is responsible for the condition of the country. Mm-hmm. And good people needed to stand up, run for office, go to Washington and fix the problem. And I know a lot of people talk about doing that. And a lot of people go to Washington and they become part of the problem. because they don't have the leadership skills to stand up sometimes to their own party and make decisions that are really right for the district and right for the nation. So I decided to take this task on. I checked with my wife to make sure she was all in, because if she wasn't all in, you just can't do these kinds of things. And she is all in, and we're working very hard, building an organization that is going to win this primary, and then we will take the incumbent out in November.
Well, Tom, first let me say thank you for your service.
My privilege.
Thank you very, very much.
My privilege.
What are some of the issues facing the districts?
The economy is in shambles, as in the district as it is nationwide. While the administration touts that they've, the job numbers are down, jobless numbers are down, it's not the real jobless number. There are many, many people who are no longer seeking jobs, so the administration doesn't count them. So those who aren't seeking jobs come off that number. It lowers the unemployment number, and it makes the administration look good. Every economic recovery that this country has had has been led by small businesses. So one of the goals for me would be to help get the government regulations off the back of small businesses so they can flourish and they can go ahead and hire people, because those are the people who generate a real economic recovery. And we've got, fishermen, we've got pharmacists, we've got florists and farmers, and all of them need the less government regulation, and they need to be able to flourish in their business.
Tell me a little bit about your campaign. How is it going?
Campaign's going well. Being a new politician, we're working hard to get the name recognition out there and to raise money. But the size of the organization is growing on a daily basis. We've got volunteers that are signing up each and every day. We now have interns. I've got a campaign manager, obviously a field director, and we have some campaign advisors that we talk to on a regular basis that are giving us some great guidance. People with a lot of experience in politics, which clearly I don't have.
Okay. What's the difference between you, Mr. Keating, and Mr. Allegro?
The major difference right up front, easy for everybody to see, is I'm the only veteran in the race. Another difference is I'm the only one in the race that has business experience in the airline business, where I served as a general manager in two different positions, where I was responsible for profit and loss. I don't believe either of those gentlemen have ever been responsible for that. And that's a big thing when your decisions and your plans affect the daily lives and the employment of a lot of people. My military background, they don't have that. I've negotiated with foreign governments on behalf of the United States of America. I don't believe either of them have ever done that. I've had talks with people, some of my crews, where I was sending them out where they were going to risk their lives, and had to sit there and tell them, look to your right and look to your left. If you get into combat, one of you likely is not coming back alive. That's not an easy thing to do. Tony Schiavi talked about it earlier. Leadership is required. You've got to be able to make the hard decisions.
Are we at war, Tom?
We are at war. Unfortunately, the United States, the administration, either doesn't recognize it or refuses to recognize it. Now, the guys we're at war with, they know it. And they're at war with the entire world. Witness attacks in Belgium, in Paris, Istanbul just last week, now even in Baghdad over the weekend. The carnage is unbelievable. And until we take steps as a nation to wipe out ISIS, not contain them, not slow them down, wipe them out, it's the only thing they understand. We need to do that. And until we do that, safety of the American people is at risk.
Second Amendment.
Gun control, always a hot topic. I am a Second Amendment advocate, but I also believe in very strong background checks. Not everybody needs to have a gun. It's just plain and simple. And if anybody has a history of mental illness, then they would have to be examined by, and they wanted to apply for a gun permit, they would have to be examined by competent medical authorities to determine whether or not that mental illness is completely gone, is it likely to come back, and that would be paid for by the applicant, not by the government. And they would have to set a very high bar in order to allow that to happen. And while we're on gun control, assault weapons. There is no need for anybody in civilian life to own or possess an assault weapon, a real assault weapon, not a semi-automatic weapon that's dressed up like an assault weapon, but real assault weapons, just not needed.
Common Core.
Common Core. My wife is a retired teacher of over 30 years, and she's educated me pretty well on Common Core. I knew on on a visceral basis that I didn't like it, but Karen was able to really focus that for me. Common Core teaches kids how to take tests. It doesn't teach them, it doesn't give them an education. We're not teaching history. And Common Core needs to go away, and one step in doing that is taking the education of our children and moving it from the federal level back to the control of the state and the local communities who know best how to educate the children. Now, I'm okay with a federal standard of accomplishment for students, but you don't need a Department of Education to run the educational system. Let the states and the local communities, with obviously input from the parents, run the children's education. That way, you can reduce the size of the Department of Education, and that'd be a good step towards reducing the size of the federal government, which would not be a bad thing.
Well, anything else you'd like to say? Any other comments that?
I believe I am the right candidate at the right time. I believe the fact that I'm not a politician is in my favor. I believe the fact that I'm new to it is in my favor. Mm-hmm. Everywhere we've gone, we've met people, we've done well. We've found ourselves to have new supporters everywhere we go. And it's been great getting out there and meeting people. And if anybody has any questions, they can go to www.OMalleyforcongress.com.
Working bipartisan and compromise?
You have to be able to work across the aisle. Nobody gets everything they want, and you have to decide what's really important to you, and you've got to be able to compromise. You've got to give to get. And Charlie Baker is a perfect example. He's got an 88% approval rating, and he compromises. He compromises with the Democrats. It's obviously necessary considering the control they have in the legislature up on Beacon Hill. But compromise is not a bad word. It's not a dirty word. The United States of America, after the Constitution came into effect, a lot of the amendments and a lot of the pieces of the Constitution were agreed to by compromise with the different sections of the country.
Thank you, Tom. We're on Rule with Tom O'Malley in a conversation. Tom's running for 9th Congressional District for U.S. Congress. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Ron.